Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Education Writers Association for this webinar on spotlighting gaps on home internet access for local communities. I'm Stacia Cedillo, EWA's Program Specialist. Before we begin, let me go over some housekeeping items. If you have a question for our speakers, type them into the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel. Please include your name and affiliation when you ask your question. And please feel free to ask your question at any time. We'll have a Q&A portion at the end of our demonstration. But if there are questions that come up during the conversation that are relevant to what our guest is going over, I will go ahead and ask those too. And as soon as the webinar closes, you are going to get an evaluation survey, and we ask that you please complete it. Your feedback is really important to us, and it helps us improve. So this is a short webinar today. We have about 30 minutes, and we are joined by Lynn Woodworth, who is the Commissioner of Education Statistics at the National Center for Education Statistics. Lynn is going to be spending the first 15 to 20 minutes today demonstrating how to use the NCES Edge Mapping tool. And like I said, I'll be moderating Q&A in the background. So without further ado, I am going to go off screen, and Lynn, I'm going to hand it to you. So what is the tool that you're going to be demoing for us, and how do we access it?
Thank you, Stacia. So I am going to be showing you today the tools that are around what's called the NCES Edge program, which Edge is our geographic data interfaces. We have a couple of tools that I'm going to show you today. The first thing is in order to access it, the easiest way to find it is to just start with Google. That's why I'm showing you my screen here with Google on here, and just type in NCES Edge. And the first link you're going to see is going to be to the Edge homepage. And you can see here that EDGE stands for Education Demographics and Geographic Estimates. So this is a tool that we put together working with the Census Bureau. I've been noticing in a lot of reports lately, and we see a lot of presentations and read stories online and such, that we see a lot of references back to the ACS data, which is the American Community Survey. This is a survey collection that's done by the Census every year. And it's done in such a manner that over a 5-year rolling basis, you're able to get information on the entire U.S. population. So what we do is we work with the census to create special tabulations at the school district level. So this is a really useful tool for education writers because it allows you to get data that's specific to a particular school district. For example, if you were to get information from the ACS website on New York, or ACS data across from any source on New York, what you're getting is New York City, plus you're getting pieces of New Jersey, parts of Pennsylvania. You're getting the very broad area. Whereas if you use the Edge website, the information you're going to get is going to be specifically on the New York City school district. And this is the same way this works in most urban areas. So this allows you to get very specific information about particular districts and not just the broader metropolitan statistical area. So one of the first tools I'm going to show you is the Acs Ed Dashboard. And right here is the icon for this. And you simply click it. It will take you to a tool, and you just start to type in a school district. So for example, we mentioned New York. So if I come in here and I say New York, and it starts doing a search function as you're typing. And so it filters the list while you're typing, and then you get down here to where you can see, so we're looking for New York, City Department of Education, New York. And we click that, and it's going to bring up a nice dashboard for us that has some information on the city of New York. And specifically, this is talking about the different populations within New York. Now, under the ACS special tabulations we have in the EDGE system, we have information on the general population. So that would be all people who live within the boundaries of the New York City school district in this case. We also have specific information where you can say, look at just families with children. There's also specific information where you could look at just families with school-age children, so 5 to 18. And then lastly, you can look at just families who have children enrolled in public schools. So again, the ability to make these differentiations, we think, is really a great benefit for people who are writing specifically about education. So let me show you an example here of what we're looking at across this particular dashboard. So you can see is the first column we have up here is total population. This is the community. So this is everyone who lives within the boundaries of the New York City School District. It doesn't matter if you have children in school. It doesn't matter if you're single, if you're elderly. You're in this data set. And so you can see here, for example, the population that lives within the New York boundaries. You see the median household income, for example, is 60,762 people. Number of households. We have race ethnicity breakouts for those people who live within the boundaries of the district. We have information on the housing. A really key variable right now that's of great interest is, of course, households with broadband internet. So right here, you see this percentage, and this is all the homes that have access to broadband internet. That's not homes that actually have it installed. This is homes that have access. So 79%, 39.4% of households within New York City have access to broadband internet, could have it installed if they choose. You also see some information there on housing structure type, what percentage of people live in houses, what percentage live in apartments. This information is available for any school district in the country. All you have to do to change school districts is simply come here and click this button to change school district. The next part of this dashboard is about children in public schools. So this portion of community is weighted by household. So we get the information from census. We compute the information based on the number of households. And for this information here, children in public school, this is actually based on the weight of kids. And so when you see the numbers here, we're talking about the percentage of children in the public school system. So for example, in New York City's public schools, 25.4% of the families of children live in families whose income is below the poverty level. 32.2% of children are in families with food stamp benefits. You can see the makeup of the householder type. So 53% of the households that public school children live in are headed by a married couple, whereas in New York City, 39% are headed by a female householder. We also have information on parents of public school children. So some of the information here is similar to what you saw up here in the upper part where it talks about the community as a whole, except now we're looking at just those households that have children who are in public schools. So for example, if you remember above, the median income for all of New York City was $60,742. But the median income of households who have children enrolled in public schools is only $54,483. That's about a 10% difference. So you can see that you can really tailor the information you're reporting based on the particular populations you're looking at. Again, if you look at the percentage of renter-occupied homes, here in looking at parents of public schools, you see 70.5, whereas up above in New York City as a whole, it was 83.9. So again, very different slices of the information as you look at different portions of the population. Now, this dashboard is a handy tool because it provides you some immediate information, and you can look something up very quickly if you're wanting to look at a particular district. However, there are other tools that we have within the Edge program, and there's actually a much more powerful tool that I want to introduce you to, and that is here the Acs Edge Maps. When you click this button, it's going to open an interface tool, and we refer to this as Map Ed. And you get this first splash screen, it's going to ask you where you would like to begin. So this tool contains all the items that are in the ACS. They are included as district level computations inside of this tool. So one of the items that's in the ACS, again, that's of great interest right now, is broadband. So if we come in here and we click experience, for example, and this is going to give us this little pop-up that tells us we can look at additional groups, and I will show you that in just a moment. But I'm going to click here and say, okay, I want to look at experience, I want to look at computers and internet use, and I want to look at households with a computer. And when I click that, it's going to create a map. And in this map, I have every school district in the country. And all I have to do to find out the value for that school district is click on it. As I say that, and then it doesn't want to let me click. In just a moment. There we go. A little lag. So you can see when I click on a school district, it will pull up the information on that school district. And so, for example, Garfield School District in Utah, the percentage of households with a computer is 97.9%. And you can get this information for any district in the country simply by clicking on the district. So this is some incredibly useful information. You can see the color scheme down here at the bottom. You can actually expand this color scheme to include more categories. If we want to take it up to 7, for example, you can have 7 breaks. There we go. And so now we have 7 different levels. You can see, of course, the levels here across the bottom. Now you will notice there are a few blank spaces on the screen. Occasionally there are counties where we cannot compute a estimate because there's not enough data, or because the population size is too small or insufficient sample size. So there are occasionally going to be some school districts where, for privacy reasons, we cannot reveal the information. But for most of the districts in the country, we have data that's available here. So this is a really useful tool, and there's actually some interesting things that you can see across it when you look at it. And that is, if, for example, if we look at, click the wrong button. So if we zoom in to an area, which you can do simply by double clicking, or you can use the zoom tool over here. You can also search. So for example, I could say, and there we go. So you can put in a location like San Jose, and it'll zoom you in right to that location. So the tool is very useful in a couple other areas, because if I click on this and I see, for example, a place like San Jose where you have a unified school district, I'll get a piece of information, the block will pop up and it gives me that information for San Jose. So because of the way the file is structured, we actually have different layers. And in locations where you have overlapping school districts, for example, you have an elementary school district and you also have a secondary school district or a high school district, such as the case up here around East Palo Alto, you can actually see the information for each district individually. So when I click East Palo Alto, you see this larger area gets highlighted, and that says it's the Sequoia Union High School District, because the east area of East Palo Alto is served by that high school district. And you can see for that high school district, the percentage of homes with a computer is 98.4%. But when I click the second arrow, I can go down to the other layer, which in this case is the elementary school district layer. And I can see that in the elementary school district, for example, only 93.9% of homes have a computer. Now I can select other topics to look at by simply clicking the experience, this right here, which says experience. Let's say instead of looking at households with a computer, I want to look at households with broadband internet. So the percentage of households that have an actual internet subscription, again, I click here, and it's going to pop up the information for that area. And again, I see the high school district area has 93.3% of homes have a high-speed internet subscription. But then if I look at the Ravenswood Elementary District, which is the district that serves East Palo Alto, I see that only 77% of homes actually have a broadband internet subscription. So you can see there's some vast differences. sometimes very close geographic differences can have very stark differences within the household. And in fact, if I click to the district just neighboring to East Palo Alto, I can see, for example, again, I get the high school district pops up there. And then I click over and I see Menlo Park, where in fact 99% of homes have a high-speed internet connection. So you can see there are some very broad differences even within this area that's served by a single high school district. The elementary districts are very different. Now, one of the things that explains that is if I come up here and I look at another area, let's say I look at economics, for example, and I come to income and I can say family, and I can see the median family income for these areas. So now my map has changed over, and now I'm looking at family income. And now when I click here, again, I get the median family income for Sequoia Union High School District, that broad area, which is $161,000 a year. But when I look specifically at the elementary level, I find for example, in East Palo Alto Raven City Elementary School District, the estimate is only $60,766 per year. Their neighbor, which is in the same high school district but a different elementary district, again, I click, give it just a moment to come up. There's the high school again. When I look at the Menlo Park, the median family income is over $250,000. And if anyone is familiar with this area, you know that the only thing that separates Menlo Park from East Palo Alto is Highway 1. But you see, there's a vast difference in the individuals that live there and in the population of who attends school there. So you'll notice again, my population group here is children. So this is households with children. I could also select all households. I could select only households with children who are school age or enrolled, or I could even select only those children actually enrolled in public schools. So let me switch it to children enrolled in public schools. And again, I'll pick income, median family income. It's going to pull up my map. And again, when I click here, so I get when I look at children enrolled in public schools, I get a considerably lower number for that high school district. It's only 106,000 instead of 161,000. I don't get that much difference at the Ravenswood City Elementary District, the East Palo Alto area. But when I look at the Menlo Park school district information, again, I still get this $250,000 difference. So this tool really lets you be able to get really down into the weeds and get very detailed information on these much smaller areas. And again, all this information is organized by school district. We have, as you can see from the list here, we have a wide variety of topics you can look at. Income levels, you can look at employment, poverty, okay? What percentage of people are in poverty? What percentage of families are in poverty? Health insurance availability. Social issues, household structures, okay? Family households by type. You can look at these experiences, these different activities, residence a year ago, disability status, computer internet use. There's a wide variety of topics that you can use this tool to look at. Now, there are a couple other features of the tool I want to quickly show you. The tool, in addition to being able to do the simple color maps, there's also some additional layers you can turn on.
Lynn, before you jump to that, we just had a few questions roll in that I thought you might want to answer now.
Sure.
Julia McAvoy asked, how do we know this data is accurate? So for example, in Oakland Unified, they're distributing computers and hotspots now. So she's asking, how often is this data updated, and do districts provide the info to the source here, and does this get checked for accuracy?
So no, this data does not come from districts. This comes from the ACS, the American Community Survey, which is conducted by the Census. And the way the American Community Survey works is they sample a significant portion of the country every year, and then they produce information such as what you see here from the 5-year rolling averages. So For example, this would not capture the distribution of computers this year as reaction to COVID by the school district. This would show the level of computer ownership within that community, though, over the last, again, the average across the last 5 years.
Great.
As far as accuracy of the data, this data is all produced by the Census Bureau in conjunction with NCES. The Census Bureau is a federal statistical agency. NCS is a federal statistical agency. We stand behind our products and the accuracy of our data.
Great. And one more thing before you get to the layers. My Mayola Ina, I'm sorry if I butchered that. She's an education reporter at Alaska Public Media. She's wondering if you can also, can you get down to the level of individual schools? So for example, if you wanted to compare 2 elementary schools within the same neighborhood, does this tool allow you to do that?
So no, this tool only goes down to the school district level. Trying to go down to the school level there represents too many privacy concerns. It would be too many places where you would be able to apply particular filters to get down to an individual and perhaps reveal too much information. So it only goes down to the district level. You can, in fact, though, see where schools are. One of the things that you're capable of doing here is, as I was about to show you, is turning on the location of schools. So as I click this public button here, and it's being a little laggy today, I'm not sure if this is on my end or the server end, but you can see then the schools, it populates the map with the schools to show you where they are. You can also include private schools or post-secondary institutions in this. We have a border setting for districts. We have a border setting for congressional districts and states. I also want to add for the person from Alaska, you have to zoom out to get to Alaska, but we do have the data for Alaska. So we start to zoom back in, so you can see the fact we do have information here for Alaska. We also have information for Hawaii, although because Hawaii is a single school district, there is only one number for all of Hawaii across all these different values. So one of the last things I was going to show you before we go into the Q&A is, as you can see here, you have the ability to create these maps, and the heat maps are really useful because you can pull up what you want the heat map to represent, and then you come over here to these 3 dots, and it says share this view. You can either email it, you can post it to Facebook, you can post it to Twitter, or you can copy this address right here, which will then allow you to simply paste this into a web page, and it will pull up the map as you have it set up, and it will pull up the view that you have displayed on your screen. So you can go in and decide what you want to talk about, decide which population group you want, which indicator you want, and then share that out as part of your story. You can also click here and turn on a second set of maps so that you can make comparisons. So let's say I want to look at, I have family median income shown up here, and I also want to look at computer internet, broadband internet subscription rates. And so now I can see these 2 items next to each other, and when I scroll in or scroll out on one map, it makes the same adjustments on the other map. And so I can click here to see the information from households with broadband, and I can click here to pull up the information on median family income. So you can actually have 2 different factors you can look at the same time. You could look at the same factor in different population groups. So if we wanted to look at median family income, and we wanted to look for the total population as compared to populations with children enrolled in public school. Oops, sorry, I did that in backwards order. You got to select the population group first, then select the topic. And so I can actually see these side by side. So I can see, for example, in Moffat County School District in Colorado, the median family income of all people who live inside that school district is roughly 70,000, whereas for those families who have children enrolled in public school, it's only 61,000. These numbers obviously get a little more stark. For example, if you were to look at Washington, D.C., where you have a big difference between the populations enrolled in public school versus private school, this is kind of where, while we don't have a private school level as a setting, you can kind of make some assumptions there by comparing the different groups. For example, if you were to compare all school-age children to public school enrolled children, the difference you could attribute to private school enrollment. So this is the basics of the tool and how it works, which is what I wanted to present to you. Now I'll be happy to take your questions because I want to make sure we have a chance to get those questions in.
Yeah, so we have a couple people wondering about downloading data. Are the data downloadable if they wanted to compare a large number of districts in a spreadsheet or program database manager, and how do they do that?
So if you go back to the Ed website here, the master website, and actually, hang on a second, let me take you back to the same one I told you to use, NCS Edge. So if you go back to this master website, which is an easier place to use, you have this information here called Acs Ed Tables. This actually gives you all of the tables, and we actually have these going back like a decade, that you can download. And here's the information for the total population. Here's information for the families with children. Here's information for parents. And when you click this, it's going to open up a file that lets you download the raw data at the school district level. So you can actually create your own apps if you would like to, or if you want to work with the data itself on a broadband. This is where you would come to get the data. And as you can see, there's a number of year ranges that you can select from.
Sorry, I was muted. Sunny G says, how do you calculate households with a broadband internet subscription data by children enrolled? Is that possible?
So if you you can compute it for the households that have children enrolled. We don't have then have a multiplier for the number of children who are in each household. So no, we don't actually have that number weighted by kids, unless it is recently. We talked about that one. Let me make sure before I say that it hasn't been added. It hasn't been added to the dashboard here. I don't believe it has. We didn't recompute that one. The main reason we didn't actually recompute it, though, is because it was very similar to the households with broadband number for the children enrolled. So if you go back to the maps and you look at you simply look at the children enrolled population, that's going to give you a pretty close number because it's a percent of households.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so if you set this for children enrolled, and then here you select households with broadband internet subscriptions, that's going to be very close to what the value you're going to get if you were to weight it instead by the number of kids. You'll get a very similar number from looking at the number of households.
Great. Mark Lieberman asks, if I wanted to find the districts in the country that have the lowest number of households with a broadband internet subscription, is there a way to do that?
So downloading that master data set file and then sorting that and analyzing it that way would be your easiest way to do it. I mean, you could also try to look by color, but that would be a little bit challenging. We don't, as you can see here, we have the ability to change your color ramp and stuff, but we don't actually have the ability to filter by a particular category. isn't built into this particular tool. But you could do that with the raw data that you could download from the site I just showed you.
Right. And I know you talked about the updates to this. Is there a time frame when it'll be updated next?
So this is updated annually, and it's based on when the census completes the ACS. As you might imagine, the census schedule is a little off right now because of the decennial census is taking priority, and so when the next annual ACS update comes out, that's when the next update to these data sets would occur.
Okay. We have another question from Julia McAvoy. She asked, is there a way to get this by zip code rather than school district? Is there a way to do the mapping tool by zip code rather than school district?
No, not for this tool. So this tool is specifically built for providing information at the school district level. I am not sure if Census actually has a zip code level tool or not on their website. I know they go down to, for a lot of these numbers, they'll go down to the census tract level, which sometimes is less than the zip code and sometimes more than the zip code. It just depends on the size of the population density. But yeah, unfortunately, this tool is focused on school districts. Gotcha.
And does it show where there is in fact no access to broadband?
So we have not found any place where there is absolutely no access. There are some places where there is very little access, and those actually often coincide with the areas where you also see a very small population, which is why oftentimes, again, if you look at some of these very rural areas, you're going to see some places, again, that are not colored in because the data is not, we can't release the data because of the small sample. But typically, it's very rare to find a place in the country where there's literally absolutely no broadband access. I'm clicking a few places where I expect to see the lowest numbers. So you will see here in Utah, there's a 60% rate. You get down here into some places, there's 41% down in some parts of Arizona. A lot of these are along some Indian reservations. Here's one at 24.7%. So we get pretty low, but there are very few places where it's actually zero.
Got it.
School district. Let me specify, there are absolutely some specific addresses where you don't have access, but for a whole school district to not have access with you, I'm unheard of.
Is there any way to differentiate between quality of broadband, i.e. the speed of broadband?
So not with the data that we get from the census. The FCC has some information that they try to collect, but typically broadband is classified as just a general category. And so you really typically don't see them getting into specific speeds like that on most questionnaires. It's more just, is there something beyond DSL available?
Got it. Okay, well, we've gone over about 4 minutes, so I think we'll stop there. I think we got to a lot of questions. The only other question was somebody missed how he got the side-by-side map up, and I just wanted to say we will have a recording of this on our website within the next day or two, so you can check back and rewatch it and see how Lynn did that if you haven't already figured it out. So Lynn, thank you again so much for taking us through that tool. That was super helpful. And on behalf of EWA, I'd also like to thank all of our attendees and EWA members for joining us. As soon as the webinar closes, you're again going to see that evaluation survey, so please complete it. We'd really appreciate it. And yes, everyone have a great day. Thanks, Lynn. Take care.
We want to encourage everyone to use our tools, use our data. If you ever have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help you and to help make sure our data gets used.
Thank you. We appreciate that. All right. Take care, everybody.